The journey into the lands between begins not with a roar of triumph, but with the hollow silence of a forgotten tomb. The Chapel of Anticipation is the first location every Tarnished sees. A lonely, crumbling structure perched on a jagged spire of rock, completely isolated from the mainland of Limgrave. Its name is a cruel joke, for anticipation implies a future, yet the chapel is a place defined entirely by the dead and the discarded. As you push open the heavy wooden doors and step out into the biting wind, you are standing at the edge of a world that has already ended once. This isolated precipice is the threshold of the Grace of Gold, the site where the lost and the long dead are spat back into reality to begin a quest that borders on the impossible. To understand the chapel is to understand the nature of the Tarnished themselves. We are the uninvited guests at a funeral that has lasted for centuries. The architectural design of the chapel is steeped in the aesthetics of the Golden Order, yet it is ravaged by a profound, unnatural decay. The stones are bleached white, the ornate carvings are worn smooth by salt and time, and the very ground seems to be pulling away from the mainland. This isolation is symbolic. The Tarnished were those stripped of the grace of gold and exiled by Queen Marika the Eternal, cast out to live and die in distant lands. The Chapel of Anticipation is the bridge between that exile and the return. It is a reception hall for the resurrected. However, it is a hall that has been desecrated. There is no priest to welcome you, no choir to sing of your return. There is only the chilling sight of a Grafted Scion, a multi-limbed horror that stands as a living testament to the depravity that has overtaken the lands between in your absence. The presence of the Grafted Scion is the first major lore clue the game provides. Grafting is the signature sin of Godric the Grafted and his lineage, a desperate attempt to gain strength by sewing the limbs of warriors onto one's own body. The fact that a Scion is waiting for you in the very place you wake up suggests that Godric has been farming the returning Tarnished for centuries. He knows that the call of grace will bring warriors back to this specific spot, and he has stationed a butcher at the gate to harvest their parts before they can even set foot on the mainland. This transforms the chapel from a place of religious significance into a slaughterhouse. Every limb on that Scion likely belonged to a Tarnished who woke up just as you did, full of hope and purpose, only to be immediately dismantled by a creature of nightmares. You are not the first to arrive, but you are the first to survive long enough to matter. Standing in the courtyard, you can look out across the mist and see the Erd Tree in all its overwhelming glory. From this vantage point, the tree is a pillar of light that dominates the sky, a constant reminder of the prize that awaits at the end of the journey. But the chapel is also where you find the first corpse of a Finger Maiden. This is a detail of immense tragedy that many players overlook. Every Tarnished is supposed to be guided by a maiden, a servant of the two fingers who interprets the will of the greater will and turns runes into strength. Without a maiden, a Tarnished is essentially a ship without a rudder, unable to harness the power of the land. The dead maiden in the chapel is a sign that the system of the Golden Order has completely broken down. Someone, perhaps the Scion or perhaps an agent of the conspirators who orchestrated the shattering, ensured that you would be maidenless from the moment you opened your eyes. This lack of a maiden is what makes your eventual meeting with Melina so significant. In the Chapel of Anticipation, the silence of your dead maiden is the silence of the greater will itself. You are an anomaly, a Tarnished who was meant to fail before the quest even began. The chapel is a test of will. It asks the question, what will you do when you are alone, unarmed, and hunted by a monster that represents the worst of the world you seek to rule? For most, the answer is death. When the floor beneath you crumbles or the Scion's blades find their mark, you fall into the dark waters below, seemingly ending your story before the title card even appears. But this fall is the true beginning. The sea beneath the chapel is a burial ground for those who were not strong enough to cross the threshold. If you return to the chapel later in the game through the 4 belfries, the atmosphere shifts from one of terror to one of mournful reflection. You see the place for what it truly is, a ruin of an era that no longer exists. The Stormhawk King, an ancient and noble spirit found here, suggests that this rock was once a seat of power for the rulers of Stormvale before the era of grafting and corruption. The chapel isn't just a religious site. It is a fragment of the old world that has been physically severed from the new one. It is a place of transition, a purgatory where the spirits of the past watch the warriors of the future fail. By returning, you reclaim the items you were denied at the start, including the ashes of your dead maiden spirit, finally bringing a sense of closure to the tragedy that opened the game. Ultimately, the Chapel of Anticipation is a masterclass in establishing the tone of Elden Ring. It tells you immediately that the world is beautiful but broken, that grace is a fickle thing, and that you are an underdog in a land of giants. It strips away the comfort of the hero's journey and replaces it with the cold reality of survival. The wind that howls through the broken arches of the chapel is the same wind that will follow you to the foot of the Erd tree. It is the wind of change, and you are the leaf caught in its path. To wake up in the chapel is to be given a second chance, but it is a chance that must be carved out of the stone with blood and sweat. It is the first lesson of the lands between, that even in a place of prayer, the only God that answers is the one holding the sword. The isolated nature of the chapel also hints at the fractured state of reality in the lands between. It is as if the land itself is trying to push away the returning Tarnished, keeping them at arm's length on this lonely rock. The bridge that once connected the chapel to Limgrave is shattered, leaving only the sky and the sea as companions. This physical disconnection mirrors the spiritual disconnection of the Tarnished from the Erd tree. You are close enough to see the light, but far enough to feel the cold. This tension is the heart of the Elden Ring experience. Every step forward is a struggle against the gravity of your own exile. The chapel is the point of origin for a journey that will eventually burn the world to the ground or see it rebuilt in a new image. It all starts here, on a crumbling spire, with the sound of a bell and the shadow of a grafted king. In the heart of the lands between, the Chapel of Anticipation remains a silent witness to the endless cycle of death and rebirth. It is the beginning of the end, the first page of a story written in ash. As you look back at its silhouette from the cliffs of Limgrave, you realize that the chapel was never meant to be a sanctuary. It was a crucible. It was the place where your old life was finally stripped away, leaving only the Tarnished who would one day become a lord. The chapel is gone, but its lesson remains. The path to the throne is paved with the bodies of those who couldn't see past the mist. You are the one who walked away from the cliff, the one who looked at the dying light of the Erd tree and decided to reach for it anyway. The anticipation is over. The war for the Elden Ring has begun. After the fall from the cliffs of anticipation and the cold embrace of the sea, the journey does not end in death, but in the damp, lightless depths of the stranded graveyard. This is where the true scale of the Tarnished struggle begins to take shape. You wake up in a subterranean tomb, a place where the air is thick with the scent of damp earth and ancient, stagnant magic. The transition from the open, wind-swept heights of the chapel to this claustrophobic pit is a deliberate psychological shift. It reinforces the idea that as a Tarnished, you are a creature of the earth, a being brought back from the grave to toil in the shadows of a world that has moved on without you. The stranded graveyard is the literal and metaphorical underbelly of the lands between, a place where the discarded remnants of history are kept out of sight of the Erd tree's golden glow. This location serves as a stark reminder of the cost of the shattering. As you navigate the stone corridors, you see the spirits of those who came before you, forever trapped in a state of half-existence. The most prominent feature of this area is the Cave of Knowledge, a tutorial area that is framed as a descent into a hole in the ground. This is a subtle piece of lore. To gain the knowledge required to survive this world, you must first be willing to descend, to humble yourself, and to face the darkness head-on. The spectral soldier who waits at the end of this cave is not a grand hero, but a basic foot soldier of Godric's army. The fact that this simple combatant is your first real test after the Grafted Scion shows how far the world has fallen. Even the lowliest grunt is a threat to a Tarnished who has just crawled out of the water. One of the most enigmatic elements of the stranded graveyard is the fringefolk hero's grave, hidden behind a fog wall that requires a stone's word key to unlock. This area is a brutal gauntlet of traps, featuring a massive, chariot-like machine that relentlessly patrols the halls, crushing anything in its path. This machine is a masterpiece of cruel engineering, likely designed during the height of the Golden Order to protect the most sacred or dangerous of burials. The presence of such a high-security tomb directly beneath the starting point of the game suggests that the stranded graveyard was once a place of immense importance. It was a site where the fringe folk, those on the edges of society or those who had lost their grace, were laid to rest. The chariot acts as a final, unthinking guardian, a relic of a time when the law of the Erdtree was absolute and unforgiving. As you finally emerge from the graveyard and push open the massive stone doors to Limgrave, the sensory overload is profound. You are greeted by the sight of the first step, a grace point that overlooks the vast expanse of the world. The contrast between the gray, suffocating tomb you just left and the vibrant, golden grass of Limgrave is the moment Elden Ring truly begins. But the graveyard remains at your back, a literal hole in the ground that connects you to the dead. It is here that you meet White Mask Var, the first person to speak to you on the mainland. His mocking tone and his immediate observation that you are maidenless reinforce the tragedy of the Chapel of Anticipation. He knows where you came from, and he knows exactly what you have lost. He stands as a predatory figure at the exit of the tomb, waiting to see if you will be a lord or just another corpse to add to the pile. The stranded graveyard also houses a secret that connects to the very heart of the game's themes. The Dragon Communion altar accessible via a coastal cave. By traveling through the dark tunnels beneath the graveyard and emerging on a tiny island, you find the remains of a dragon and the ability to consume its heart for power. This reveals that even at the very start of the game, there are paths to power that lie outside the Golden Order. You can choose to follow the light of the Erdtree, or you can descend into the ancient, primal traditions of the dragons. The graveyard is the junction point for these choices. It is the place where you decide what kind of monster you are willing to become to achieve your goals. The fact that such a primal site is tucked away behind the starting area suggests that the foundations of the world are built on older, bloodier truths than the Erdtree would like to admit. There is a deep sense of irony in the name Stranded Graveyard. The Tarnished are stranded in life just as they were once stranded in death. You have been pulled out of the peace of the grave and thrust into a war you didn't start, in a land that doesn't want you. The graveyard is the only place that truly accepts the Tarnished, because it is the only place where they are expected to be. Moving away from it and into Limgrave is an act of defiance. It is a refusal to stay buried. Every time you rest at a site of grace, you are momentarily returning to that state of stillness. But the call of the Erdtree always pushes you back out into the fray. The graveyard is your origin, but the Erdtree is your destination, and the distance between the two is measured in the lives of the gods you will eventually slay. The mechanical nature of the hero's grave chariot and the spectral guards within the tomb highlight the stagnant nature of the lands between. Nothing has changed in these halls for centuries. The traps still fire, the guards still patrol, and the stone remains cold. While the world outside is changing, with the stars moving and the Erdtree burning, the graveyard remains a fixed point of misery. It is the baseline of the world. By surviving it, you prove that you are an agent of change, a force that can disrupt the eternal stagnation of the tombs. You are the variable that the Golden Order didn't account for, the one soul who crawled out of the stranded graveyard with enough fire in their heart to challenge the sun itself. In the end, the transition from the Chapel of Anticipation to the stranded graveyard and finally to Limgrave is a perfect narrative arc. It takes you from a height of spiritual potential, drops you into the lowest depths of physical reality, and then releases you into a world of infinite possibility. You begin at the top of a tower, you fall into the sea, you wake in a grave, and you walk into a kingdom. This sequence humbles the player while simultaneously setting the stage for a grand ascension. The graveyard is the memory of your failure, but the open fields of Limgrave are the promise of your future. As you look back at the dark opening in the cliffside, you realize that you didn't just wake up in the lands between. You escaped from its basement. The journey has begun, and the grace of gold is waiting, but the damp cold of the graveyard will always be a part of who you are. The silence of the tomb is now behind you, replaced by the howling winds of the first step and the distant, golden glow of the Erdtree. You have navigated the chapel of your dreams and the graveyard of your past. And now, the path of the Elden Lord lies open before you. Whether you seek to mend the world or see it consumed by another flame, your origin remains the same. a lonely rock in the sea and a dark hole in the earth. You are the Tarnished, the one who was meant to stay buried, but who instead chose to rise.